disturb the field, but again, I think we're also in a time constraint too, because that's gonna be excavation. It will only be a small trench, but it's going across the middle of the field.
So I think I may have asked last time, you can't run the wires through the same,
It's too small.
It is too
It's
small.
only a 1-inch
Sometimes.
conduit, and I propose that we use a 3-inch conduit and possibly throw in also maybe some added conduit for telephone as well as cable.
cost pennies while you're doing it now.
Exactly, exactly. And unfortunately, even just for the power source, the existing conduit is too small to run new wires to be adequate to run a 100-amp service.
So at this point, I think what we need to do is discuss it then with maintenance, at least groundskeepers.
Probably walk the grounds with Dave.
Yeah.
And see what
I
he
mean,
thinks the
football's gonna be
impact
starting
will
up pretty soon, so.
Football and soccer, well, that's the concern, because now, if the ditch is there,
Yeah, but they won't touch the field till the end of August, so, I mean,
be. And the tryouts on a different field.
yeah, they don't.
Generally they are, yeah.
That's for games, pretty
Yeah.
much only.
I would say that the quicker that you can dig that trench and get the conduit in and get it backfilled, the better off we are.
thank you.
So I
Just
would,
wanna make sure though that it's gonna be done before we start playing on it, that's the thing.
Well, that's what I'm
Done and
saying.
ready.
Well, it can be done in a short, I mean, it
Yeah.
can be done in the course of a day, 2
Yeah,
days
that's-
at most.
that's a
Right,
fairly
but
quick
then will it
process.
recoup in
But the
time?
recoup
Yeah.
time,
the
that's,
thing.
that's my concern, you know,
Right.
is just to make sure.
Sprinklers on there, right?
Exactly.
They do have sprinklers on the
Yeah.
field.
You know, if we're not, and this is something that, you know, I have not discussed with the Booster Club in regards to that, but if we're not moving forward with starting the structure until, you know, we could even build the structure, or work on the structure even at a later date, and the power could be run, you know, for it after the seasons, the sports seasons, you know, are completed, so that disruption of the field would be done maybe late fall, early winter, before the frost, hopefully, depending on the weather.
Right.
And that way there gives the whole off-season to recoup as well as the early spring.
Because by the time they're done playing though, you're not gonna plant grass on it. I mean, they play lacrosse on that till the end.
Yeah. I mean, could you use sod instead of seed? I mean, if you
You could.
sod, it could, I mean, come back.
Well, I
quick.
don't think, I'm kinda hoping or anticipating that because I'll be doing the excavation.
Yeah.
but that we can cut the sod that's there, lay it off to the side,
They don't- oh,
and
that'd be
then,
fine
and then
then.
dig our trench, because the trench
Right.
only has to be minimum of 36 inches deep. And really, if I can get a small enough trench bucket, you
Right.
know, it's gonna be a small trench, maybe a foot. It's just gonna be a 3-inch conduit that's running, you know, from point A to point B.
Right.
So it'll be as little disturbing of the soil as possible, and hopefully be able to reuse the sod that we
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay. Yeah, a month, I bet a month. Right now, we're looking at a month. It's probably enough time.
Pretty much.
Like I said, I think what we wanna do is discuss it with maintenance and even.
Yeah, I don't think it's our decision. I mean,
No, even the athletic department, I mean, it's like,
Well, it's our decision to okay the project.
Oh, yes, yes. But running conduit right now.
Do we know how the underground sprinkler system, is there a layout for that? Do we have any diagrams of that at all? Nothing, huh? Okay,
Somewhere,
I'm sure there is somewhere.
yep,
okay.
yeah, there is one,
If you hit a line, you can always patch
that's
it.
Bob.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just PVC that you can just put back together. I'm not, I just, you know, be easier if you didn't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
a
all proper procedures will have to be followed anyway, dig safe will be notified, you
Yep.
know, but, you know,
Yep.
again, with the
Samoset?
field and rec department, as
Yep.
far as finding out what they have knowledge of would be the biggest asset.
Samoset irrigation?
Yeah.
Can you pop in and just say that?
I play golf with Samoset Irrigation. He was mentioning that he thinks that you go right across around the 50-yard line and would be fine. He knows where the sprinklers are,
Oh, okay.
Great, awesome.
Bill,
If not, he can fix them.
in about 8 weeks.
So going forward, how do we know, you know, we get the thumbs up, because we do have a time constraint, if maintenance,
But I think what you need to do is coordinate that with the athletic director.
okay, I will do that.
And then, I mean, once that's accomplished and they feel comfortable with it, then you can get back to the superintendent. I mean, we're all for it. I mean, as far as the plans, we're still gonna be waiting for, you know, the fire department and the building inspector as far as written, okay
Right.
on that.
And we'll just
So-
continue our
Within
seeking
the
of
same time
sponsors.
period, I'll
Right.
try and do a bird's eye view, or have mocked up a bird's eye view of the placement in reference to the field, future bleachers. I have somebody that's willing to assist us with
Because
something.
you'll probably still need permission from the building inspector as far as running your wires, correct?
Pardon me?
As far as running the wires?
Yeah.
You still need a license for that, right? A permit?
Probably not.
Or just to connect?
Just to run the conduit, I don't think so. We're not looking to run the wire right now, just get the conduit in the ground.
Okay.
The wire can be pulled by the licensed electrician when,
So it's just
at
at
the proper
the,
time.
just at the connect that they're concerned about?
Correct,
I
correct.
know,
We're
like,
just trying to
Right.
provide a conduit to be
Yep.
able to pull the wires through
Just-
when the time comes.
Just make sure that whoever you're planning on doing the electrical work, that they're okay with pulling electrical wire and Cat 5 wire and whatever all through the same piece of conduit.
Well,
because-
it's gonna be different conduits.
Okay.
The electric, I mean, that's.
So
that's,
we'll have two different or three
Correct.
different
If we,
pieces.
if we do decide to go, additional conduit for additional needs, I
Okay,
think the
that's,
time
I
to do it
just,
would be now, but
Yeah.
no, they'll be
I know
separate.
electricians are
Right.
very,
No, I work with them all the
Person about
time,
that.
but,
Yeah.
no, power and telephone and cable will be separate.
all right.
I would hope that you folks could run all your conduit at the same time. I agree
Correct.
with you. I think it's so much easier for any future changes you want to make to already have that conduit in the ground.
Right.
Great, thank you. And then one more question. So in the fall, this is a fundraiser permission question.
Nothing like putting the superintendent on the spot.
I know.
Thank
Well,
you.
it kind of bounces off what we're doing
said
for the
that the board makes those
sponsorships.
decisions.
no, we said for this, you had permission. Go ahead.
Oh, brother, no, I'm teasing.
Go ahead.
We have levels of sponsorship that we are offering, and we have come up with a plan of, if they give $5,000, I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize for that. You do?
They
Okay.
get a gold football for $5,000, they get a silver one for $2,500.
Right.
They get a nice green one for $1,000. I won't tell you what they
Thank
get for $500.
So, I cannot see, forgive me. So, going forward, may we have permission to also ask families if they're, or offer to families our Cougar sponsorship, which is $100, where they can have an engraved brick? And, because our plan is to use these and going into the gate and as part of a walkway. So for example, in the front of the building, when you come in, there are
Right.
bricks there with families. I believe it was Friends of Music that did that. And this would be separate from, it wouldn't really be sponsorship, it would be more of a fundraiser because we would send it from the Booster Club to families here. Current families and alumni families.
If you're asking me, I think, do we know what the process was to do the bricks in the front and how that was handled? And I would like to review that.
Sure.
I don't see any specific major issues at this point, but I would like to review that to make sure that we're in the same book and page as what we did previously. And if everything looks like it's okay and the board doesn't slap my hands too hard, we certainly can
probably
look
put one in
positively
it.
on that.
Okay.
That's a very common way of raising money, so,
Right.
you know.
It's our lowest of the sponsorships, but thinking about going forward and when the Booster Club presents to the parents in August, I know that there are families, including my own. I have 4 boys that have gone through. I would love to give them each a brick.
Sure. Woody, how,
Right.
like this?
Sure you don't want to give them, you sure you don't want to give them 3,200 bricks?
I wish I could just write a blank check. Oh, the naming. Yeah, that's what Bob said. I'm gonna win that Mega Millions and we'll build that press
I'll
box.
try to look at the history of that and get back to you no later than the beginning of next week.
Oh, thank
'cause
you, and
wanna move
I'll do
quickly.
my side, and then we can kind of coordinate
Sure.
that and touch base on Monday?
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
Because the other thing I wonder, is that still open that you could still purchase a brick in front of the school?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
You're not giving away any naming rights with your sponsorships, are you?
Naming the building or something,
Naming the press box
No.
or anything like that? I don't-
Just plaques,
Okay.
yeah.
unless you want to build the whole thing.
Well,
Right.
even then, it would,
Yeah, right. Approval.
start changing a few school board rules.
I can see it, right up there on the top of the press
The York
box.
building.
York building, I know, that's what I saw.
So, any other questions?
I think that's it right now. Like I said, just looking for the approval and then.
Yep, we will
said,
go forward with
talk
that,
to the
so.
AD and communicate with the superintendent or even the principal as far as, I mean, that'd be the concern,
And I
is what
think-
the ground's gonna look like in a month.
Yeah, I really think, Corey, you have to be looped in on that, because the grounds crew is the one that we're gonna have to make sure we get the grounds properly taken care of. I think the AD is going to just give you a blanket go-ahead. I just think we're gonna double-check on the grounds crew to make sure we're okay with getting it up to snuff.
You set a time, come down and walk.
Well, that's just, it's not gonna be the grounds crew's responsibility to get up to stuff. It's gonna be theirs.
I know, but, I mean, I think the AD is gonna say,
Inevitably means falls
Yes.
back to the school, because
right,
Right.
we're the ones that have to have the field in playable condition.
yeah,
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
good point, though.
Just keep our fingers crossed.
Alrighty.
Maybe we'll have someone step up in the next day.
That'd be nice.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody left?
What's that?
Everybody left?
I think Turner's over there.
Yeah, I saw that one side.
So, Betty, I'm not sure if there's miscommunication or not, but the interviews were at 5:30?
Yeah, you said 6 o'clock in the email. But, I mean, it's fine. I
Okay.
just wanted to come down here and be like, what happened?
What happened? Yeah. I
And
would,
just-
no,
never mind.
okay.
I'm fine.
So I would encourage you, though, that I know you have shown an interest as far as meetings and Bennett meetings, but there's going to be several openings come this March, and I would definitely encourage you to run for a position. Thank you.
Can you get me the history on that front walkway?
I will try.
Good, see if we can find out.
I'll contact Rachel Salas.
Yeah.
Huh?
Baseball team does bricks, it's doing bricks for the
Yeah,
playground.
I have a feeling that there's still some that are involved with it.
Where did the baseball team put the bricks?
Jeff Lane?
Oh, the Justin Bissett Field?
Yes.
That's rec though, right?
What is,
H.L. Turner.
oh,
Building
no,
assessment.
no, no, I didn't, it had nothing to do with the walkway, did it?
Yeah.
No, just talking about the baseball team selling bricks, but somewhere else.
Oh, the baseball
my
team's
time.
selling bricks.
For the town. The walkway was before my time.
Yeah, that,
Okay.
I think Rich LaSalle will probably be able to shed some light on that.
Okay. Doing good, Mr. Chair. It's only 6:10.
Yeah. I don't even know if he's on yet. I guess, gentlemen, you're up next.
Great, thank you.
We're ready for you, so
All righty.
let's find out
Well,
if
sounds like
he's...
she's got us all set up. I'll let you sit in front, Doug. I'll just put the chair beside you.
We have a technologically competent person here.
Oh, no.
Anybody do high-tech here?
What's the problem?
I understand you're doing a lot of IT recently. Are you still?
Yeah, no, but yeah, we filled the positions, but I'm still, they're not trained yet.
That's good. You were whining pretty hard here, Mother.
Just so everyone's aware, we are being recorded, but we're just not, we just don't have any film, so John, when you go back for this one too, there'll be no images.
Is this audio only?
Yeah, as of right now.
My microphone's not on either. There's no green light.
Yeah. He says right now we're being recorded.
It's working.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So, I'm Doug Proctor, architect with the Turner Group. And
Bill Hickey, the Turner Group.
we're coming back just to give a briefing on the 30s building at Griffin Memorial School. So we went back and did a detailed survey, looked at the structure, measured the building up, got some sizes, looked at the floor elevation changes, looked at the condition of the building. And so some things that we ran into for occupation of that space are the floor level changes. Basically, what I call the lower level, first floor, is 2 feet down from the
basic grade of that wing of the elementary school, and that wing itself is down like 18 inches from where you enter the building. The next level up is 7 feet or so above the adjacent classroom wing. So it's not really conducive to accessibility or having kids in there, although if you're providing a service for a child, as long as you're providing that same service in a different part of the school and it's accessible, you're allowed to do that. So you're able to provide that service in a place with stairs is what we're saying. The building structure, it's a brick bearing building,
Yeah,
right?
steel frame and with brick masonry bearing exterior walls.
The second floor is held up by metal bar joists and a poured-in-place concrete slab.
Yep.
We initially, at the last meeting, we talked about if you could pull that floor out and create like a larger space. It doesn't look like the building's conducive to that because the walls are relying on that interstitial floor as support. We looked at the ventilation, that area has a high water table, so there's a lot of moisture down in the lower level of that space. We wouldn't recommend anybody being in the lower level. I believe the custodial department's using that as a storage for the rest of the building as well. So if you displace them, we need to find a place for their storage. The heating system is functional, it's probably past its service life. There's a lot of rust going on because of the moisture in the building. There has been evidence, or we've witnessed evidence, but we've been told there was flooding in the building.
Yeah, we've been told.
And I talked about the vapor intrusion, the moisture coming into the building, custodial storage. The classrooms upstairs are just under 600 square feet apiece. State standard is 900 square feet for a classroom. And with the accessibility, what we recommend, if you do want to use that upper floor, is that it could be some kind of staff office area or a tutoring space where you're one-on-one with a child or something like that. I don't know if you guys have a Title I program, something like that going on.
And what would have to be done for it to be ADA compliance to utilize it for that reason?
Right.
What would?
Well, is getting back to where if you're providing tutoring on another floor level that's accessible, you can provide tutoring for students that can get up the stairs in that building.
Right, so you can provide duplicate spaces, as long as one's accessible, they all don't have to be accessible. So you may have somebody who needs services that can access an upper level without a lift or an elevator.
Okay.
So you could provide that, as long as there's an accessible space that's duplicate of that, you don't have to provide everything doesn't have to be accessible.
It's not really conducive to putting a lift in there either, or
Right.
or a stair lift, that runs up the stairs. So, because if you do something like that, you have to bring their mechanism up with them, their chair or something. So that's what we came up with. If you did something like that, we do recommend doing a full renovation of the building. So then I don't know if it's cost effective to you or not. I think you were trying to get real teaching space out of it because of your portables out in the rear.
And what would the cost be for that, roughly?
What's the square footage?
I had that number.
So you said they're 600 square feet each, so roughly 2,500?
Yeah, but there's the outside area too, so.
Some more.
You have those floor plans? Oh, there you go. Yeah, so that's the lower level.
It's probably got about 2,000 square feet on it.
Yeah,
it's like- it's like
2,500.
So you do, basically, boy, you're talking about, you'd have to excavate around the exterior,
Watch.
do some waterproofing, damp-proofing.
Like 200.
I was gonna say probably between $300,000 and $400,000.
Does that include the asbestos removal?
I would think the asbestos removal, there's not a lot that we saw, so I would say yes.
And what do you think that then turns it into with a renovation like that?
I think then it's what we talked about, just the small instructional space, small groups, one-on-ones, things like that. It's not big enough for a traditional classroom, so it'd be really specialized instructional space.
I'm trying to get it to show up, it's not showing up.
So if you, on the first level, well, I take it, if you did a renovation, would both levels then become workable? Just the top level?
Just the upper level, yep.
So if you remove the wall between the two classrooms, is that allowable? I don't think is that a support wall?
No.
No, between the two classrooms?
So you could turn it into one big classroom if you had to?
You could, it would be
Odd-
1,000 square feet,
Right.
1,100 square feet.
So for
A little rectangle.
one classroom, you'd spend $300,000 or $400,000. That doesn't really sound very economical.
We're just the messenger.
I'm just,
And that
I'm
was
just
the
talking
big-
out loud,
That was
so.
the big question, it's tough. Sometimes these buildings have a lot of sentimental value, and that sentimental value outweighs the practical value that the building has left. And a lot of times it's hard for folks to let go of a building like this, but there's a time.
So, can I ask the unsentimental question?
Sure.
What would it cost to tear it down?
And remove it.
50,000?
Yeah, probably like,
Not a
I was
lot.
gonna say like 30.
You'd have to take the asbestos, you'd have to clean the hazardous materials out first, and then to take it down. And we're working on a project right now, they're demoing a wing of a school that's,
Like 13,000.
and it was 125,000. So this being much smaller,
We witnessed him take down one classroom in about,
5 minutes.
yeah.
So,
Take it down.
yes. It's tough to say take it down, but, there comes a point, just about, not all buildings, but a lot of buildings, it's lived its life.
Is that?
It doesn't really have any usable life left.
My concern is you've still got below ground on your first floor, you're still gonna have, I would think, vapor issues unless you
Right.
put some really substantial kind of, water.
Well, yeah, you could come through, put a vapor barrier down, pour a new slab, and then you're up, 4 inches or something like that, or something like that, but you're still gonna have issues around, we have to do something around the perimeter wall as well.
Right.
And because it's in such low ground, you probably wanna do the outside. And
Right.
there's no real way to daylight the foundation drain unless we find a structure to drain it into or something.
Right.
So if you removed it, and then you came back in from scratch, can you turn that then into a workable space with classrooms and things like
I
that?
think it would give you the opportunity to bring the lower level, I don't know, you could bring it up to the floor level of the school itself, so all of a sudden the accessibility goes away. You could configure the space, given the size, given the footprint, and given how much room you have to work with, you probably can't go a lot bigger
We'd have to look and see how close it is to the setbacks. It's
Right.
pretty close to the road.
along the road, but I was
Um,
thinking a little bit to the back and maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but,
That's the driveway back into a loading area
Right.
back there. So
yeah,
we'd have to analyze how to reconfigure it.
but it's a fairly small footprint, so.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get you couldn't put a lot in there, given the size of the building.
Well, you just
and
pick up-
if
well, you
all of a
just pick up a
sudden,
couple
you're adding
parking spaces.
stairwells and you're adding elevators or lifts to get up and down, you've probably chewed up 25% of your floor space just in circulation, which is space that you need.
Start from scratch.
Help make drop
We
off.
had,
levels, you could do
if
that.
I might, the board had looked back in, I think, 2009, 2010, into potentially building a structure down there. And Ed Murdo from the state, who at that time in charge of construction, looked at that site and was very concerned about how high the water table was.
There it goes.
And was not on board with immediately granting any kind of permission to go ahead and start building there without addressing the vapor, water intrusion into the existing building.
Yeah, I think to pick up, if you were to do something to pick that lower level floor up to be equal to the school, you brought it up a couple feet, you can take all the steps necessary at that point in and around it to mitigate and, hopefully eliminate that moisture problem. But yeah, you're right, like Doug was saying, you'd have to find something to tie into a structure, to tie into to get rid of the water, and we know you have a high water table anyways, so.
That was the simple layout of the office space. You know, you have an outdoor workspace, exterior workspace for where you might be tutoring kids, or you can have the office space for the tutors.
It looks like a SAU office, huh?
Do what you want, sir.
The other issue with this building, if you tear it down and try to build something new, I'm not sure the fire marshal will let that happen because it'll trigger the sprinkler issue.
Yeah, you have the sprinkler or lack thereof,
Your building's too big.
and you've been grandfathered. So as soon as you go to do something, you're gonna trigger that requirement.
Yeah.
Major renovation.
And although Department of Ed isn't staffed like it used to be, the fire marshal still is. And he'll be happy to come visit.
Does that include, if we go to remove it? If we go to remove it, that wouldn't kick in that
think
sense,
so.
would
I
it?
think so.
I don't think so. It's only if you add more space.
Oh, if you add more space?
That's the,
Yeah.
once you add more square footage, that would raise the flag.
Or do a renovation or
Major
something like
Or
that?
renovation. Right.
But John's brought up a good point. I mean, with that building going, the drop-off would be a lot
You
easier.
make a better, couple parking
Access
spaces
to it.
and better drop-off for the little ones.
Oh,
Yeah,
if it was usable, you mean?
Think a
Yeah.
lot better.
yeah,
Would be.
yeah.
It'd be close to the
Get them
building.
further away from the road and just, you know,
Yeah, you're showing your, kind of your back door once you take the building down, but you might want to put up a screen wall or something.
Well, the problem is right now, everybody thinks that's the front door.
someplace says Griffin Memorial School.
Enter here.
Enter here.
Or arborvitae. Imagine.
Now that's got maybe a warrant article or something to
Tear it down.
tear it down.
Drive it, I'll drive it.
It's not historical at all?
Be a nice kind.
It is.
Well, it's historical to the
Some
people who went to school there. I mean, I don't.
It's not protected.
It's not a,
It's
it's not a
protected.
architecturally historical.
But the only thing that's historical is
Just
just
the catalog.
the entranceway, which isn't utilized anyway.
Right, the facade.
Even though it's a historical structure, you couldn't store any kind of, I wouldn't think, historical artifacts in that building, they'd get destroyed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
the
know,
moisture is not
typically with any type of storage like that, you want a real high-end air system, you want a no
Exactly.
moisture in the building, because
Exactly.
Control the
everything will
humidity.
just
I know
degrade
the
quickly.
Historical Society stored their banner or whatever.
Well, they'd done a couple of art shows and stuff, and they wanted to store a banner. I think they showed it here at the high school.
Yeah.
And they wanted to store it in there, and that sort of began to change a use of the building.
Right.
Discussion back when we had that discussion with them. And eventually, the school board elected not to allow them to use the facility with their tapestry or whatever it was, but.
So it was an artifact.
It was like
The
a
banner was an
tapestry or something like that, historical.
Okay.
And there was concerns, liability, this, that, and the other thing, and you know, inevitably, the school ends up, you know, it's a town historical society, so, you know, you don't want to have fights with each other, but I imagine that we'll have a fight if we decide that removing it is the best option.
Right.
But I've been advocating that for 7 years, so.
But I think if, we'll add an appendix to our report and outline all these things, including the costs, and a lot of times the costs just, you can't get, that's the thing that make people kind of sit up and say, yeah, I guess if we're gonna have to spend that much money, that's just the best solution.
It seems to be an awful expensive
If
storage
we built a
place.
1,200 square foot building, which essentially is what we get if we spend money,
Mhm.
what would it cost us to build a brick and mortar 1,200 square foot slab building to current standards?
Right now-
Because it's little?
Yeah, it's
Your
gonna be a
square
little-
foot high,
You're
cost is gonna be high.
Probably $300 a square foot for something like that, so you're probably
300,
3 to
350,
350.
with, with a real mechanical
$300,000.
system.
Oh,
It depends
yes,
on,
you're
if
saying
it's a
to
storage,
renovate An old building, we're still gonna spend $300 to $350.
And, yes,
At
and you'll have to modify your use to what's there.
if it's just a storage building, you don't have to have high-end systems in it.
Right.
But if it's, for human occupancy or something like that, yeah, it's like 300, 350 a
It's
square
just a
foot.
heated storage area, it's one thing.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you're probably a third of that cost.
And,
if
and,
It's just heated
and the
storage.
reason the square foot cost is so high, because the footprint's so small, so the mobilization costs for a contractor are very high.
Once the truck's on site, whether
Yeah.
whether it's 10 feet or 100 feet, it's pretty much.
Yeah,
the
that number
cost
gets
of the-
diluted a bigger a building
Yeah.
gets, so.
You went to like a 2,500 or a 3,000 square foot building. I mean, at the higher you go, the less the cost per square foot.
Yeah, but to get past that 300, 350 point, you gotta be up around 20,000 or something.
20,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, and then at 350, then you also have to look at.
So when we go to
what's
the
it gonna cost
steel
you for a
building,
sprinkler
right?
system.
Butler Steel, here we go.
There we go, build that steel
You know what?
building.
It's funny, that's always been conventional wisdom, is a pre-engineered metal building is the most cost-effective, but the last 2 or 3 projects we've looked at, going in with that thought, conventionally fabricated steel has come in cheaper than a
Really?
pre-engineered metal building.
Oh.
Right now, they're very
Oh.
popular, so their prices are very high.
Okay.
So there are options there as well, which is, I'm amazed that we're at this point with those guys, but that's where it is right now.
What about this is probably an anathema, what about a stick building as opposed to brick and mortar?
Well, you don't wanna put, because the way, well, no, it's the school, because you don't wanna attach it to the school, because the school, because of its size, needs to be non-combustible construction,
Got you.
especially because it's not sprinkled.
So that's not an option.
But could you do a firewall or something, Doug, or a separation, a corridor separation or something that may allow a stick frame?
I'm not sure this community would want to go in that direction.
Right.
but I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask the
Options,
question.
sure, yeah.
I would recommend a brick and mortar building if we ever did build anything.
I mean, almost the idea for GMS, if you needed more space, you actually needed, if you're looking at the front entrance of the school now, you actually got to go to the left of that area, back over into that, where the kindergarten playground and whatever, over into that area would be where, about the only place, I don't think you can go
You may
behind the school.
investigate if there's any elevation as you go backwards towards the middle school, if you wouldn't think about something
Yeah.
further back there and get a little bit of elevation so you don't have the water issue that you're gonna have
Yeah.
anywhere you dig on that lower part.
Yeah.
I'd build a separate building right where the kindergarten is right now, that whole area. That's where I'd put a building, for kindergarten.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I just think you're gonna have to deal with that water table issue, because the stuff I've read is pretty, well, I read a lot, I shouldn't say that. The one letter I read from Ed Murdo, who I think is a pretty good guy, there was a great deal of concern about the water table.
Couldn't you just elevate the building?
I don't know.
Think
I don't
we're
know
on
what
a beach.
solution
Snag's Head or something here?
Yeah, it's too bad the Booster
we-
Club's.
I'll listen to the experts.
Yeah, you could take, but again, it's all about, you can do anything you want under the building, but if you don't have a place to run the water to, but I'm sure that we could find a structure on site, or we could add
Yeah, we
structures
need
to
to
get
do an
rid of it.
analysis
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
That's what he suggested.
I'd say if we tear it down and get the Booster Club back, they can sell those bricks to historical people.
The heck with the Booster Club getting money for bricks.
Historical bricks.
They would take the bricks right off the beach.
So I'm saying they
That's
can-
it.
Unless you
That's-
guys had any other questions, we don't have anything else.
Could we fit 2 classrooms in that outdoor space that's between like the first grade and the
There you go.
The courtyard?
Courtyard?
courtyard? Yeah. I bet you could fit 2 classrooms there.
Probably could, but then once again, what it's gonna cost you, and then what's it gonna cost you for a sprinkler system?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fire exits.
Right.
I think that's
There's
why that
concerns
doesn't
about
have
what's
classrooms in it
underground
now,
down there,
is
too,
because there
because
wasn't
the
egress.
additions were done around that area.
It's filled it all
So
in.
there's stuff that's buried underneath that would have to be moved.
Oh, there's
like
absolutely-
piping
yes.
and
Yeah.
I've dug in
drainage.
there, there's definitely
You know,
stuff.
there's
in
there's
there.
going to be
Yeah.
concerned with that too.
I think I have one more.
Get a couple of
I
grades,
know we
metal
went back and forth as
grades.
far as like vegetation in there, we're gonna grow and have boxes and,
Yeah,
I
we
think it's-
we tried that.
yeah.
If we were to use that lower area for storage, because of the moisture, is there a risk to, I'm framing this question purposely, is there a risk to doing harm to anything we might store in that lower area?
I think it'd want to be strictly short-term storage. I don't think you'd want to have anything down there for a long time. The stuff that's in there now, like Doug said, the custodial department, it looks like that's where the stuff gets delivered in the fall, and as the school year progresses, they use it up.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's gonna get harmed but down there,
So-
what I saw.
If we wanted to utilize it for
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
if we wanna utilize it for storage without
I think there's some.
being concerned of damaging it, what would it cost for dehumidifier system in that?
I don't think it would really do you any good, because you don't have, you're just, the moisture.
You're just gonna keep pulling moisture in from the
Right, you're just-
outside.
you're-
You need to put a barrier in and then put a
Right,
dehumidifier
you're
in.
fighting an uphill battle at that point that you won't win.
I think we had a discussion at one point in time for the upper level, the school was looking for, to secure the documents that the SAU has to store for every student from here to eternity.
Yeah.
And we were looking at putting in metal security gate, fencing or whatever in the top classrooms upstairs. And then whatever filing cabinets needed to be weatherproof and fireproof and whatever. I think that was
we talked about
3 or 4 years ago. I think that was the mindset of that space being used.
A couple reasons not to do that. One is the moisture issue, the paper. The second issue is it's a lightly framed building, so you could put a few file cabinets up there, but you wouldn't want to put a whole lot.
They're gonna come down.
Unless you want
We're gonna come in one
to
day.
solve one problem, or, again.
We're working on the demolition costs here, we're trying to save a few dollars.
Those fireproof file cabinets, the 4 drawers, they get really heavy, and you tend to gang them together, and it could
Okay.
cause other issues. So,
That may have been what they
Yeah.
concluded also, so.
yeah.
I'd be concerned if they're storing a lot of paper up there. Like you said, they get the delivery for the year. If they're putting it upstairs, those cases of paper weigh some weight.
I think everything's
Downstairs.
Everything we saw was
Oh,
down in the
downstairs?
basement.
Yeah, everything's in
Nothing
that,
upstairs.
And you're not gonna carry
north
paper
room.
upstairs, man.
No.
Because you can dolly stuff up and down the ramp to get
Yeah,
it
they
to the
got,
lower level.
it can
but
go
you'd
right
have
out
to
to
carry it
the, that door that's
upstairs.
open goes
Hit the
right out
ramp,
to the
too.
loading dock.
It is very steep. Once you start going down the ramp, there's no stopping. So,
Get out of the way.
yeah, that's right.
To talk about dehumidification, we're working on the ocean engineering lab at UNH right now, and they have a wave tank pool and a dive pool in this high bay space. And they want to dehumidify the space, but they don't want to cover the pools, so we basically have a dehumidifier sitting on a mezzanine the size of this room that's just going to run all the time, just to dehumidify the space. I mean, big
The
units.
pool's empty.
And they don't have any.
Yeah,
water.
exactly.
How come we keep having to fill the pool?
Nice and dry in there.
We're just running the condensate line back to the pool. That's that uphill battle that you can't win.
Seriously, looking at taking it down.
If you guys have any more questions, going forward, Michelle knows how to get a hold of us. If you guys need us, we'll be happy to come back, whatever you need. We can finalize the report within the next week or two, and we'll shoot it down to Michelle if that's okay. And, if you want any more information, other information, whatever, just let us know.
What you might want to know, Corey Zbicki is now the police administrator of the district.
How are you?
And
Congratulations.
Corey can certainly.
Okay, that's
answer
great.
your questions and
Yeah.
have some information you want forwarded to Corey.
I don't yet.
Okay.
We're working on it. We couldn't spell his last
Can
name.
you?
Absolutely.
And then I'll make sure you get copied on all the correspondence.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, that's
You
great.
really want to go through Corey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know Frank, and he's in Exeter now, so we were looking around wondering, okay, who's the new Frank? And now we know.
So you'll have the final report in a couple of weeks?
Yes.
So that we can get the committee back together.
Yes.
Yeah, and if the committee has questions, or you guys have questions, just holler.
Just let us know.
Yeah.
Going
Try,
further
we can ask the
investigation.
committee to make a decision on the building, and then we can blame them.
That's the best thing to do.
Get a chair back.
I'm the chair of that committee.
You still get blamed.
Liz, you're gonna get a new position.
We gotta wait till Liz misses a meeting. and-
That's right, that's right. She's not sworn in. I make a motion, Liz takes over the building committee.
When's she on vacation?
I'm turning it over to Liz right now, because I don't want to be in the,
that.
Does anyone have any other questions for these gentlemen?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said we could use the upstairs for Title I or a classroom, but it's not handicap accessible.
Right.
All right, I have a problem with that. But you could do all of Title I in that room, so that would be, they could use that as space if they had to, if people asked. But I wouldn't use it as a classroom because not all kids would have access to it.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, and that's, I think, we were saying, the duplicate space thing, if you have an accessible room, you
So
can
there
use
has to be
that.
one Title I.
Absolutely, that's
handicap
fully accessible.
Well,
and then
there's,
the other one-
as you go into where the door is that separates the buildings.
Yes.
There's kind of like a odd shaped corridor there.
Yes.
There's like a little niche there.
Yes.
If you're providing space, a tutor space in that little niche, and and you make this like the tutoring wing or something like that, that would probably work. Because you're providing the same service, just
Right.
on level, you know.
I was just curious. People are gonna ask.
Then you can, I would,
I would ask.
I don't know the answer, but it seems to me that also creates a staffing issue. When you have two different spaces, that you're gonna have some kids go to this space, some kids go to that space.
Correct.
Then you've got a staffing issue you're gonna have to deal with at the same time you're dealing with the actual structural issue. Right. So I think-
Or, you know, their office is up on the level and they know that this one child is coming down for tutoring and they just come down to meet them, you know.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
very much. Have a good evening.
I believe that brings us to correspondence. Unless I skip over anything,
That's
General.
me. I did not receive any correspondence.
Superintendent
We were
comments?
good for a month.
What's going on?
Mr. York had asked us to go through the non-teaching positions and provide the board with a copy of a document that would list all of the various non-teaching positions, paras, mentors, et cetera. We put that together, and we supplied that to the board, so we will get the copy over to you as soon as we can, Liz.
Love to see it.
Yep. And it broke out into individual paraprofessionals, program paraprofessionals, tutoring and reading or math, guidance counselors, et cetera. And then we had a total of 25, 18, 13, I did this earlier, I think it's 56 total people who are assigned to those different roles. And we just defined what the function was and who they were. And what was interesting to me was the individual paraprofessionals and program paraprofessionals. I kind of understood their roles, but the district tutor was a slightly different role. The district tutor is really someone who works with math and reading, and mostly at GMS, and so that was kind of an interesting role for me to really get a better definition of. There were some roles like student support counselor, which we have in the books. We do not have anybody filling that role right now, so there is nobody in that role. And then we also included things like guidance counselors, school psychologists, school social workers, speech and language pathology. And so we gave you that. We did not give you the number of placeholders in each one because we had January 2017 data, and we can give you that current data once we get all that data together in the fall. But I think that might have answered your question, Mr. York.
Yep.
The second one, the second piece that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was the enrollment report. And it was, I used the word uneventful the last time, but it really was somewhat uneventful in terms of the enrollment report in May and June. There was very little change in some of the schools, and I don't know if you have any questions about it, but it really was not much to see. The next thing, well, I might, go through something real quickly if there's any questions about that. If
No,
not,
I think it was pretty interesting. I know in conversation with the budget committee last year, when we were talking about enrollment and them looking for a sharp decrease in our enrollment. And the fact that we're rolling it as right now, only down 8 students from
Correct.
last year.
I have a comment. I know in my neighborhood alone of 56 houses, there are 5 houses that are turning over in the month of
Right.
August.
Yeah.
That's just my neighborhood.
There are houses all over right now that are turning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm surprised that we don't have a bump in enrollment for GMS.
I think in another month
Maybe
you
this
will.
month, yeah.
can I ask an enrollment question?
absolutely.
Can the schools keep track of the students that are coming from the new development on Page Road as they're moving into the schools? Because we have, the
That's a
houses being
good
sold,
point.
we know are gonna be a couple of,
That's a
could be
good
1 or 2 kids, maybe even 3 kids, depending on the size. But those 60 apartments that are 2 bedrooms and the 43 homes, while they're not gonna be available this fall, but, 3 of those buildings are gonna start renting next 30 days, I believe, 30 or 60 days. So we may want to just have an understanding of the impact,
That's correct.
especially as much as we can for budget season, because it's going to impact. The houses changing over, we know occur all the time, but And hopefully that tends to be equal out, but those are not equal, those are brand new in the,
And I think the expectation is, if I'm not mistaken, is 2-point-something children, is it not?
What I had down was that there's going to be 42 townhouse rental units. 18 of the rental units are now close to completion, and they're looking, it is not expected that the remaining units will be completed by November, as utilities have not yet been put in, and the Litchfield have not been completed. But they are looking at the initial 18 to have available for rental. They're looking at some youth, they're calculating right now that most of the units will house one or at the most two children, and some of them will have no children. But they are expecting 1 or 2 children in many of these. And there's no discussion about the long-term, are they going to stay rental units long-term? That really is up to the owner. I believe the owner is Mr. Chardonnay. Yeah. And there'll be 42 single-unit houses that will be built, but we really don't have a specific on the actual schedule for building those houses. There may be 10 homes built this year in the first phase, but we really don't have much of a handle on that. But to your point, John, certainly the impact fees that we collect for construction are hinged on demonstrating an increased population in our district from the new homes. I would think it would be very important for us to keep track of the new homes being constructed and how they impacted the district. And certainly, it seems to me the impact fees are specifically designed to help us with that kind of a build-out. So that's a good thought, real good thought.
I remember hearing too that the town earmarked the impact fees for CHS and LMS and not GMS. Is that right?
well,
They're
the
broken up
impact
differently.
fees are tied, GMS, LMS together and CHS separately. So that's how they're set up.
Okay.
So whatever money's in that GMS, LMS goes to those 2 schools and could not be used for high school ones, and high school couldn't go downward. It wasn't like one impact fees for schools, there's 2.
Yeah, it's 2 different.
And I think the only reason being, we only had GMS and LMS for the longest time, then we got CHS. And, but I believe that, Corey, maybe you can talk to the town manager, he's a knower of all that, that information on that, but, but that's how the funds work. But I do believe we're gonna have some impact, this year.
Yeah, that's in doing some, and I thank Michelle, she pulled a lot of the historical data out about the last time that the board looked at kindergartens and construction at the GMS site, and the impact fee issue did come up at that point in time. So we can go back and review that, and I don't think the law has changed, nor has the impact fee, so I think that will still be the same thing today.
The other thing that's interesting on the enrollment report is our first grade is like the second biggest grade now at GMS, at 88.
I mean, clearly, if we get a 2 or 3 year trend developed in the lower levels of, 70, 80 kid enrollment, then what we're going to look at down the road is very different from what we're looking at if we're projecting only 60 kids. So I think that the next 2 or 3 years is going to be very important for us to carefully watch the enrollment, and we do, but it may make a very big difference in where we are 7 or 8 years from now.
It's not like there's been a drastic change in our community. I mean, it's not like we lost houses. So whatever dip we're getting, that dip's going to change. It's just a matter of, is it a 5, 6, or 7 year dip? But the pendulum is going to swing back
I think it
to
is.
the enrollment going back up. I mean, if you take a look at, even Londonderry, they haven't even started building their mega complex yet. They're adding 200 or 300 kids this year, last year and this year to their. So I mean, they're our next door neighbors. They're just like right over the line. So, so I mean, if you're seeing it there, Bedford's seeing enrollment increases. I mean, everybody around us that's a similar type of community is not seeing. I think right now it's beginning to come this way, and I think we're just beginning to stabilize, and I think we're going to go back back in the growth process
I think
of
next year
that.
you'll see the impact, John, when those houses are completed next year and the rest of those apartments, I think that's when you'll start seeing the impact.
Yeah. And I think Liz's point, the other thing, when we read the NESDEC report, one of the things they suggested was that a lot of people that had homes were kind of frozen into their homes because the real estate market had dipped. And so they stayed in their homes. Now that the real estate market has recovered, a lot of people are now making a decision to move out of those big homes to smaller homes or different parts of the country, and those big 3- and 4-bedroom homes now are getting freed up, and the people moving in have younger families. So I think you could have a double impact, both the impact of construction in the community, but also the impact of just a rollover in homes, like you were saying, 4 or 5 in your neighborhood.
I think the graduated class 2 years ago, those parents are starting to downsize, and that was one of the biggest classes in Litchfield.
It's like 100, almost 150.
Yeah, and those parents are starting to downsize. Move on.
Keep going.
Yep.
The other thing that I would like to report very briefly on is the full-day kindergarten and what is going on at the state level and some early research here in Litchfield. I think we're all aware that the state recently passed a law which allows for increased funding for full-day kindergarten. Currently, we get $1,800 roughly per student for half-day kindergarten, and if we were to go to full-day kindergarten, we would get an additional $1,100 for each student who is going to go to full-day kindergarten. So if we have 60 students currently in our kindergarten, that we would get an additional $66,000 to go to full-day kindergarten. And then if we looked at, usually between kindergarten and first grade, there's a bump up in enrollment in first grade because a lot of parents choose to put their kids into full-day kindergarten rather than having them in half-day kindergarten in the public schools. So we would project a bump in enrollment. We don't know how many. I think at the outside it might be 20. At the other side, it might not change at all. But let's just say, for the sake of analysis, there'd be about $2,900 for each additional child that we picked up. So if we had 10, we picked up $29,000 more. So in round numbers, you would probably pick up about anywhere from $100,000 to $120,000, give or take. It's hard to predict exactly. Keep in mind, you still have to offer half-day kindergarten to those parents who would want to go to half-day kindergarten, even though you are going into a full-day kindergarten program. Now, how does that $100,000 look if you wanted to go ahead and look at, well, what would we need to do in order to offer full-day kindergarten to our children? Currently, we have a teacher and 2 tutors in each of the kindergarten classrooms. So to go just to service our current population, we would have to hire 2 new teachers and 4 new tutors. And we would also have to take a look at our special ed population and realize that if we're going to take special ed kids who are now going like 2 hours and 20 minutes a day and have them go 5 hours a day, we would have to have some special ed para addition to the current para addition of, we currently have 2, we could lead as many as 2 more paras. So just staffing alone could be 2 additional teachers and 4 additional tutors and 2 additional paras to offer full-day kindergarten for our current population. And obviously, if we expanded to 80 children, then we'd have to add more of the above. Then we would have to take a look at space. Where would we put the children? We currently wouldn't have any space to put the children, so we would probably be looking at, unless we were to go to some sort of a bond, we may go to a bond anyways, you'd be looking at modulars. And if you went to modulars, would you want to do lease? Would you want to do purchase? Would you want to do a duplex or a fourplex modular? A fourplex modular, if you've never seen one, is a much more friendly classroom environment than 2 duplex modulars. It's 4 classrooms with a corridor down the middle and a bathroom, and it actually feels somewhat like a real small school building. So you could look at a fourplex modular versus a duplex modular. That's going to be expensive. That's another 80, 90, 100,000, 200,000. I mean, that would be something we'd have to define as a board. And then you'd have to look at just all of the technology, textbooks, infrastructure. We'd have to run sewerage and water and plumbing to the modulars if we were to run additional modulars. We do have, Corey went out to the site today and ascertained that we do have water and electricity at those sites, and we believe, Corey, we have
It
sewerage.
said one of the 2 modulars that was removed had hookup to the septic. So they would have to rerun the
So that
Were
would,
there two that removed there, or one?
There was
I thought it was
two.
only one.
Yeah, it was
Was
two
it
side
two?
by side.
Yeah.
And talking to Dave today, but there is hookups there.
It was one building, but it was 2 classrooms, I think.
So,
No.
No?
It was third grade that was out there.
Right.
How many classes were out?
from my conversation with Dave Ross this morning, there was 2 modulars out there. One was equipped for kindergarten and had a bathroom in it, and one
That was another
one
brand,
was the third
right, it was
grade.
another brand new one that we had for like
Yeah.
2 years, whatever.
Yeah, and then there's the one that's in the back that we've kept that we own. The
Right,
other two
there were two,
removed.
there were two like the one in the back.
Yeah.
And then there was one old one for the third grade.
Yeah, so all the utilities and everything are capped underground, so they'd have
That's from the
to,
other one, yeah.
they'd have to open it up and re-hook up. So he's looking at getting quotes together to get some solid numbers.
So, I know I sent an email on this, so I'm thankful that you probably stirred a little bit of this action, but maybe not. So, can a team be put together with GMS and the administration? You know, basically, this is probably something that needs to get back to the school board by the end of September. If we're gonna move forward with it, as we're moving into budgeted season, that's where our meeting is in middle October, so, is that, I mean, I don't know if that's enough time, but it's.
if I might, Michelle, again, thank you, Michelle, pulled all historical data on the 2009, 10, 11 dialogue around kindergarten, and we have all of that data. Scott Thompson's already pulled together a great deal of data, and Corey's already looked at data on modular structures, modular renting, and we do have some rough numbers already prepared with some, and we've had also the new curriculum director, Nancy's been involved in the dialogue. So we've had a couple of meetings already. I believe that we could bring you something in August, which would be a pretty good look at what you have for options. Now, the other thing that I think you have to consider in looking at a kindergarten is, if we look at it from a systemic point of view, I think we would all agree that we could do some staffing changes, and we might be able to take some of the staff we would need for a full-day kindergarten from another location. And I think we'd have to look at that piece at the same time. I will tell you, if we just were to go out and put a full-day kindergarten out there, even with $100,000 from the state, you're gonna be north, initial numbers, you're gonna be north of $400,000.
Well, part of, seems to be a very favorable reviews on impact fees. So I don't know what our impact fee amount is today.
It's not much for GMS.
It's not much left there, well.
We also reviewed legal opinion on impact fees last time you went down this road.
But
and
that was,
it wasn't
with a-
favorable.
but the attorneys at that time, were more strict than
Okay.
they are now on the town side. And the lawyers on the town side now are more open to the use of impact fees
Good.
for these types of activities.
Excellent.
So at the
Excellent.
time, that was correct.
Okay,
But today, not so
Excellent.
much. So I would, it may be worth, again, Corey, if you're gonna talk to Don, it may be worth seeing what can be used
sure.
to offset the cost of the buildings, because you can't use it for teaching, but buildings, and I would say that the governor, while not firmly mandating it, sort of strongly encouraged towns to
75
offer a full-day kindergarten.
75% of towns in New Hampshire in 2010 had full-day kindergartens. There's only 25% of the towns, and we unfortunately fall into that 25% of the towns that don't offer full-day kindergarten to our children. And there's no question, I think, today in educational research that full-day kindergarten does offer a real significant advantage educationally to our children. And I don't think there's any question that full-day kindergarten would be very, very much a positive to all of the children. And you had mentioned special ed, and it seems to me right now, we get kids in the first grade that are all over the place. And the degree to which we can ensure that all children have an opportunity to be in full-day kindergarten and arrive in first grade with somewhat equivalent skill sets would set us up very nicely to get kids into the regular curriculum much quicker. So I think there is a certain degree of payback in the long run for going with a full-day kindergarten. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%, and we will have
Well, I was-
something.
A hard advocate. I mean, I thought we should have done it back in 2009 and 2010, so
I would
I
agree.
pushed very hard for that.
I realize that.
Took many shots and dealt as many as I got, but,
I did a study some years back too.
Couldn't
on the
convince them.
board when Bo was there, as far as looking into it.
could not convince.
I think one thing though, John, we'd want to do, like Jim said, that, by next meeting, you'll probably have some harder numbers as far as here's what the cost would be, which obviously would go to a warrant article for that type of cost. But I think we ought to have a separate meeting also as far as for public input,
I think so, no doubt.
you know? And I think maybe we can schedule
Gonna
it
need it
shortly.
because-
I think we can schedule it shortly after we have some harder numbers and know what's there. I think, just, not just separate issue, and just, if we go in the auditorium, wherever we need to go. Because you're talking, a good chunk of money that would have to be spent, and then spent on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that the problem we had back then was, everybody was doing it on their own, and now we have a law and support out of the governor's office.
Well, not a law, but
Well,
support.
support out of the process for it. And-
But the concern is, and I know that the governor said he'd like to keep that going, but what if the funds aren't there through Keno? Which is where he's looking for most of the money to come from. What if it's not
So we
there?
have the legislation. They're the ones that pass the law, so whether it's there with Keno or not, they're still gonna come up with $1,100. There may be more than $1,100, but it could be $1,800. They could guarantee, they could match it.
I thought the comments from the governor was he hopes that money's there from year to year. Correct?
It's, well, once it's there, it sort of falls on the legislation to make sure it occurs, Have to call Frank Byron in here and
There we go.
give him a hard time.
So my understanding is the board is directing us to have a more detailed presentation for you in August, so that you can take a look at our best look at numbers and our best look at educational needs, and then from there you can make some decisions.
And I think what we can do from there is set up a meeting as far
Sounds
as for the
good to me.
public. That way we'll at least have some answers as far as here's what the cost
Right.
impact would be.
Yep. Thank you.
And Liz is more than happy to head up that meeting.
Already,
It's a win-win. That's how I feel about it. It's a win-win.
I would agree.
I'm all for full-day kindergarten. Like John said, he was pushing for it 10 years ago, I was pushing for it 6 years
Levels
ago.
the playing field for first grade. You
Exactly.
have kids coming in who haven't been to kindergarten, you
Yep.
have kids that have been homeschooled, you have
All
kids
different
that have been St.
kindergartens.
Francis, kids that have been to
All over.
preschool since they were born, and then it's first grade's like kindergarten all over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We will have that for you, and Scott will be here, obviously, because he knows more about first grade and kindergarten than, he's forgotten more than I know, put it that way.
Excellent. All right. That'll bring us to community forum.
Paula's been biting her tongue the whole meeting.
Hi,
Hi. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Paula's Vicky, 3 Kokokia Circle. Just talking about all this building stuff and kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, I know you're all in support of it, I think it'll be great, but I really feel like you're gonna do some safety work on the buildings, you're gonna do some work for kindergarten, you're gonna be taking down something that you may take down or may not take down in the front. That amount of money, I just don't understand why we're not seeing the problem that's really in front of us, that we need a new building, and you need to go in that direction. I know if I'm saying a curse word or whatever, but,
We're going to take a piece of it down at a time.
yeah, well, I think that this administration or board, whatever, needs to take a hard look at the building, figure out a way to get full-day kindergarten, either in that building or the older kids out in the modulars, whatever you expect to do. Figure out a way to get it done and work behind the scenes to talk about what a new building could look like. I would strongly suggest that you take a look up in Concord at the 2 new buildings that were built there, under budget, under time, that are 21st century, that you would want your kids in, and see that, and maybe go to Little Harbor in Portsmouth, who's done a renovation, and see which building you would want to go in.
Are they K
And-
through 5s?
They are
K through 5?
elementary schools. They are elementary schools. Some of them are, one's K through 5, and another one, the Little Harbor, I think, is a smaller grade level, which did renovations. And you look at one building and you go, oh, great, lots and lots of money spent, but you're still gonna need a new building very soon. And you look at another one and you go, you're not gonna need a new building for quite a long time. And then I always say, think outside the box. And when you look at, you have a pre-K to 5 building, and then up the road you have a 6, 7, 8 that you're also talking about modulars and this and that, and you gotta do all of this stuff. And I mean, does it make sense to combine them? Does it make sense to build up there instead of worrying about the water table forever down here? Does it make, I mean, I think that is a serious, I don't want to see $400,000 dumped into GMS, and in 5 years, when my kids are long past that, have somebody come to the table and say, we need a new building, because I would be very upset as a taxpayer to put all this money into that building and then have to know that that's going to happen, because quite predicting that that's what's going to happen. So, that's my public input. I just have a question on the agenda, too. Is there anything about the superintendent search tonight? Because I didn't see the agenda. Is that coming up, and is there public input on that, or is that now?
That's right after community forum.
That's now, okay. So for the superintendent search,
Well, wait, is there any other?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there any other
I'm
community
done.
input first?
Just real quick, sorry.
Sorry, Paul, you know, you get so pushy.
I just want to get home.
You couldn't stay away.
Nate Cooper, Social Studies, LA. I just wanted to say real quick, congratulations to Liz being on the board. Just full disclosure, I was sitting back there, social media up, so I did tweet it out on Facebook, as I didn't know if it was live, but the community might know, so I.
They know.
I did.
I know.
Okay, all right. So I felt bad because I was like, oh, I don't want to step on the board's toes, but just trying to drive people to our page. So, thanks.
Oh, I want to extend congratulations on your upcoming wedding next week.
Thank you very much.
Very
Congratulations.
exciting.
Thank you. Yes, August
Very happy
5th.
for you.
August 5th. So
Excellent.
be back a married man.
Oh.
So yes, that'll bring us to, if there's no other community forum, to superintendent search. Paula?
I don't want to dominate.
No, well. Again, just so you know, the people are listening, we put it out there as far as to get some public input. And we'll put it out there again for another meeting if there's anyone who wants to come in and give their insight as far as what they would be looking for in a superintendent, what they think we need to do as far as going ahead in this district. And that's why we put it on the agenda, and it may be on the next meeting also.
So one suggestion might be to maybe push out a survey to everybody in the community versus asking them to come, because as we know, we don't get a big crowd, and that way it would give them a quick chance to get their input in, maybe things like that. I was at a workshop today, and I was at a workshop with a lot of superintendents and administrators and things like that, and I really hope that we consider all the input of the public of what we want to see in a superintendent, but Jim, you have, Jim, I always, James, Mr. O'Neill, you have brought us so far.
Jim's fine.
I know, I'm like Jim James. You've brought us so far to where we are, and I have a big concern about a misunderstanding out there that a part-time superintendent is okay for our district. And I know that we are planning on hiring a full-time superintendent. And I don't think that people understand that although you have taken us so far, you are very seasoned in your position, and it doesn't, you don't have a lot of extra work that you need to do to sort of understand or know the things that a superintendent needs to know or understand.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll be getting somebody that will be sort of excited and ready to take on our district for quite a long time. And I'd like to see the committee take on an approach of really thinking outside the box as far as even negotiating contract or setting goals for a superintendent to reach in order to maybe attain certain things in a contract. I would like to see somebody who is, envisions themselves, if you ask them where they're going to be in 10 years, that they envision themselves being with us in 10 years. And somebody who is really thinking futuristic. I mean, in education, if if you're thinking where everything is now, you're behind the 8 ball. You have to be thinking, 10 years ahead so that you're constantly moving and growing. And although we've come really far, we still have a long ways to go. And we've built really positive communications with the school board, and we're working on positive communications with the budget committee, but that has an effect on who wants to come here and who wants to be part of our community. And we need to be very mindful of that when we're looking at somebody who's going to be a big communicator between both boards, between the boards and the community, between the boards and the staff, and in turn, ultimately, our children. So those are some things that I feel like really need to be a focus when we're thinking about our next superintendent.
You got a boss.
I think the board definitely feels that, the full-time superintendent is what we need. I think we're very fortunate to have Superintendent O'Neill here for the past few years. And like you said, it's not like he's someone new and had to learn. I think we're very fortunate the fact that with his experience in the 16 years in one district was extremely helpful as far as for him to just walk in and start his position. And I think he's done a wonderful job as far as correcting a lot of things, getting things in place. Do I think that if he was here full-time, could we have accomplished even more? Absolutely. But I think we got a lot out of him for the amount of time that he's here. And I think we're very fortunate that he landed here and helped us out and getting us in the right direction. But a full-time superintendent is definitely what you need.
I just want to add to that, if I could. As a part-time superintendent in Litchfield for the last 2 years and 1 more year, I've been very, very much, blessed by the people that are around me and the community and the staff. However, I'm also at times very hamstrung and frustrated at the fact that I can't have the degree of involvement in the community of Litchfield that I think a superintendent really needs to have in the long run. I think you need a full-time superintendent, so a full-time superintendent can be here on the weekends or can be at your various community meetings or with the PTOs in the evening, or be here on a Saturday or a Sunday. And as a part-time superintendent, because of the law, the way the law is written, I am really very much limited to 32 hours, and there's a certain degree of monitoring about that goes on in the state. So I would urge the community to have a full-time superintendent that can lead the district forward and can certainly have the vision and the direction that you need to become an outstanding district. I think we're a very good district. I think we've come a ways in the last 3 years, but I think Litchfield could be the best district in the state, one of the best districts in the state, and we've got some growing to do to get there, and you need a full-time person at the helm to get there. So I would strongly urge you to absolutely look for a full-time person. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I can say something.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that was what I was thinking about, needing somebody full-time because of being in the community, because I feel like the person needs to know the culture of the community and needs to know, I had it written down at home, need to know the community. Like, I think the whole debacle with the whole music program thing might not have happened if you were out there in the community and seeing, like, we have traditions in Litchfield, and a lot of the traditions include music. And so I feel like if you had been there on the weekends and so forth at the Memorial Day parade, you might have known that that was happening. So, I mean, I am in full support of a full-time superintendent. And I just want to say, like, when we had Dr. Cutler, I really loved Dr. Cutler. So, she's somebody you could think about when you think about a superintendent.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much. That'll bring us to school board comments.
I have a few.
Bye, Paula.
Good night, Paula.
First of all, I can't make it on August 23rd.
Okay.
And, so I was wondering if the board can consider, because we're going to be talking about some other things, as the kindergarten, stuff like that, we could move that, or if it's embedded in stone.
When's the next one after August 23rd?
You just have one in August?
Yeah.
and then we just roll into September 6th.
The 16th, maybe? I don't know.
What, are you saying, add one, or?
No, just,
No, we can move it to September 6th if you want to hold off as far as on kindergarten.
well, that's fine. I mean, I'd
still
like
gets-
to be here
I'm
for
in
that.
August.
I'd like to be here for that conversation, but,
No, that's fine. It's still, I mean, we have plenty of time between
just happened?
then and the budget process.
well, I don't think he canceled the meeting. I think he
Oh.
just moved kindergarten discussion.
You know, we can move it to
Going a whole month is a long time. Especially with school starting, so, so there was a, couple articles in the newspaper. The first one is, this fall, Subaru will join Audi, Ford, Fiat Chrysler participation in Manchester Community College for an auto technology program through a new partnership. Basically, high school students would be getting 16 hours of classroom training and 880 hours of on-the-job training at co-op dealerships. Graduates will earn certificates from Subaru once they've completed their coursework. Automotive technician jobs start salaries at $58,000 in New Hampshire. And there's a need for that, and Manchester, let me see, is it, the current automotive classes at Merrimack High School no longer take place at their school because their instructor resigned or retired or whatever. So they've now signed a program to do it with this program with Manchester Community College. Under the proposal, the district would pay $17,000 for 10 students to participate in the program, or about $1,700 a student. And the classes will be offered from 12:45, 2 classes a week will be offered from 12:45 p.m. to 5 p.m. from August to December, and students would take the bus from high school and yada, yada, yada. So my thought is, this would be a great thing for Litchfield to try to get their fingers into. I don't know if guys saw that or what, but that just passed that on.
Good.
The other thing was,
Okay.
the state of New Hampshire passed a new RSA, meaning that graduating seniors have to take a civics class. And they have to pass a civics class. Do we have that? Do we do this now? Yeah. And they also have to do it in 8th grade, through 8th grade. But they have to pass the, become a citizen exam. And if they don't pass it, that's a competency. If they don't pass a competency, they can't graduate.
They get deported.
They get deported. And I didn't know if we knew about it.
I knew about the high
District?
school, I wasn't aware of the 8th grade
But
situation.
it's, K through 8, they're teachers now who are working on programs for K through 8. So it's literally, I think you gotta do it every year at K through 8. And so I don't know where we stood on that, but,
I'll talk to Dr. Childress, the new curriculum director, and certainly we will, comply to state RSA and be aligned. I can't comment on that right now, but we can have a comment ready for you for September 6th.
but it's past this year, starting with this graduating
Right.
senior class, have to pass that competency.
This,
Now, do you know to
class.
become a citizen, to become a citizen, you have to get 70%, but to pass competency, you only have to get 60%. What does that tell you?
You get a 10% discount for being a
I
citizen.
guess so.
well, I think it would be quite awkward to, never mind, I won't go down there. With regards to the automotive program, John, I have been involved in a very similar program where students took automotive tech and auto body at a college in lieu of courses that they took at other, technology options. And it was a great program. My problem with the program when I was involved in it was the travel distance was just prohibitive. Down here, it seems to me the travel distances aren't that prohibitive, and that you could probably get aligned with one of the local colleges that offer an automotive program if you took advantage of their downtime when they weren't instructing. And certainly, we can look into that and see what we can come up with for, certainly not this coming year. It would have to be a year from September. And there might be some opportunities there, and I can report back to you on that over the next month or two, probably next 2 months.
And how far is the school from here?
Manchester Community College, up in Manchester.
20 minutes, maybe?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, and Nashua is over, they're probably both about equidistant from you folks.
Yeah, we're going to Pinkerton now, though, right?
How is
Yeah.
that different, except for diesel mechanics go to Nashua? That's the only one.
Well,
We're not going to Nashua anymore, are we?
I don't think, we're phasing it out. I think if kids started it, we let them
It's
finish.
diesel
but I think
mechanics
we-
is the only, it's
Na-
only
Nash-
offered in Nashua.
Nashua has Nashua Community College has two programs. One is the Honda program, which is a very exclusive program, which both academically and mechanically you have to qualify for. And that program guarantees you that when you get out, you'll have a position with either Acura or Honda. And the other program is a generic automotive program, and that program, it's not as rigorous to get into, and that would probably be the program, would be a program like that we would be looking at. I'm not familiar with the diesel program at Nashua, if they still have that or not, but I do know they have two automotive programs over there. And I know that Manchester also has an automotive program, but I believe it's more of a generic program. But I know that those are great programs to go through, and, you know, if you have someone who's mechanically inclined, who can read technical literature, and that's really critical today, that you can get a very nice job and come out of those programs, and if you're good at it, make a lot more than a teacher can make, to be quite candid about it, a lot more. So we can look into that and report back to you sometime early fall.
Excellent. All right. Anything else, John?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next, the approval of minutes, public minutes from June 14th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. And that brings us to budget transfers. Do we have any? Yep.
Yep. Leave that to Corey. If there's any questions?
I make a motion to approve the budget transfers.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. That brings us to Corey, the BA report.
So what I prepared and sent over for tonight is essentially a preliminary audit and unaudited financial statements. So these are what you'll see in the financial report once the auditors complete their audit, hopefully within the next few weeks to a month. Based on what I've found, the unassigned fund balance for the general fund has come out at $484,286. We will expect that to be returned to the taxpayers. That takes into account all the approved spend-aheads that we did coming at the end of the year, and all the encumbered amounts that we have, as well as the amounts that will be transferred over to the capital reserves. So, as I said, the auditors are coming in next week, so I'm not expecting any major changes to these numbers. If they do have something, we'll adjust a little bit, and I can report that back. With that as well, I think Michelle provided the audit questionnaire for the board, so we'll need that for next week when they start up their audit. Going forward, if there's any additional information that you would like me to report to you on a meeting basis, or different formats you'd like to see, or different types of data you'd like to see, just let me know and I'll work towards that.
So, what's the concern on the food service, and the fact that they turned a negative balance of $26,000 this year?
I think we've seen a reduction in revenues, local sources. I also believe that they spent some money investing in capital within the kitchens on new equipment, which, being food service, they are able to spend out of their fund balance in order to make those investments. But I think a large part of it has to do with, you know,
So that extra,
Local revenues are coming down, enrollment can impact it as well. You're not getting as much from the federal government based on enrollment, how many meals are served, so it all impacts.
I believe they still have a hefty,
well, they have $82,000, but they had 110.
Yep. Yeah, it came
They have an
down.
increase coming in that they're gonna request? Normally they,
Well,
have
they don't
this-
have a deficit fund balance. I mean, if they were in
Oh,
if
but-
they were in a situation where they had a deficit fund balance, then the general
but
fund would
it's-
look to
it's,
subsidize it, but.
but we have to raise the rates a dime or something every year because we're so far under the guidelines that were passed under the Obama administration, that we have to have raises every year in our food, lunch program, because if not, you're gonna put in jeopardy all the federal funds, because you're supposed to be moving towards that.
There is
We're like
a-
50 or 60 cents spread apart.
There is a
between
state calculation, haven't gotten to the point of being able to review that quite yet. There's a state calculation of where your meal price should be set, and I believe the board has to authorize those increases.
Well, it is, but it's not state-driven, this is federally driven. I'm just.
It passes through the state, it's all,
Well, we need to, normally we voted on it by now.
I thought Frank had told us at one of his last meetings that we were all set, that we didn't have to do anything with our rate.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think we raised it last year.
Tell you to look into that.
What's that?
I don't think we raised it last
No,
year.
we
No,
ra- we
hoping to.
raised the price of the adult meals, I believe, but we didn't touch the price of the student meals.
Last year, yeah.
But
I'm just thinking, I'm
when we.
talking about free
when it
meals again, and
first
not that, last thing I'm doing is voting for an
We
increase.
were
so
like
it's
50 cents apart. And I think at the time you could go up a nickel, so we only went up nickels. But after a while, you had to start going up more than that because they were going up 15 cents, 20 cents, and the spread got too far, then their assumption, rightly or wrongly, was that you weren't providing a healthy lunch anymore, and they were no longer going to provide the funds. And it's your the district's responsibility to make sure that you're in compliance with those.
Do we have a
Sure.
director of food service yet? Do we have a food service director?
We have a food service director that we have hired, that I'll be talking to you in the non-public session. We actually just finalized that today.
yep.
And Corey secured who I think is going to be an incredible addition to the district.
So,
Let him
So,
and her
Corey, I'm
figure
sure you can look into what John's talking about as far as making sure we're in compliance with the state.
but my hope too is with
No
changes in the menu and changes to the program, I think there is more to address than just, if you charge a dime more, doesn't mean more kids are gonna buy it.
It's not, it's.
There's a
it's-
menu, I think
Yes,
we need
there's-
changes
there-
in the program, and I think.
But the
I'm
program
hoping.
was driven by
Yep.
economics
Yep.
on that. We made the
We'll-
same
we're
argument.
We'll definitely look into.
We lost
all the numbers.
$25,000 when they took away fried french fries.
At the front
We
end.
we were in the money all the time until they took out french fries in high school.
But you had to pay for ketchup.
So baked french fries too.
I'm staying away from this one.
We weren't allowed to get ketchup at GMS.
We keep quiet.
Those are all
Only a
things
dime,
that
it's a
definitely
dime we
wanna
were
look
trying to
into.
get raised, right?
Okay. All right.
I'm so excited, the food menu.
Me too. No more waffles.
I think when you have a
Waffles in a
chance, take
plastic
a look.
bag.
Yeah.
Waffles cooked in a plastic bag.
When you have a chance, take up those federal numbers and where we are and where we are in compliance, and
Yep.
see what the range looks like, and
Brian's meatball
we
subs.
can then bring that back to the board and have the board make a decision regarding
Yep.
fees for lunches.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else for Corey? No. I failed to say so before, Corey, I moved over to you, but congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Excellent.
It being nice to you your first meeting, I want to tell you.
Yeah.
Very nice. You know?
Just wait.
So, Michelle, do I need to read these questions to the board?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
they did before.
All right, so I'll go into the document as far as, this is for the audit company that asked for these questions beforehand when they come in for the audit, so that we're all on board. To the members of the school board, this document is integral part of the auditing process in order to assist us with the gathering of information necessary to understand the entity of the environment of connection with the year's audit. Please answer the following questions according to your knowledge of the district SAU's financial procedures. Return to Plodzik and Sanderson as soon as possible, which Michelle will pass on. Thank you in advance. So question number 1 is, do you have any knowledge or suspicion of fraud affecting your entity?
No.
So, you gotta say it.
No.
I can't write. On paper. No. Have you identified any specific risk of fraud within your entity?
Number 2. Oh, wait.
No, that is number 2.
Why is there not
Communications?
questions?
They're not numbered.
Under 1, there's an extra
It's like
question.
1A almost.
Oh, that's kind
Oh,
of weird.
okay.
Also, no.
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 Has the board adopted a universal code of ethics for members and employees to follow? Yes. If yes, does the document prohibit elected officials and employees from doing business with entities? No.
Oh,
Doesn't? Must be.
As long as it's
Okay.
publicly brought to attention. Have you or any related party of yours had an interest, direct or indirect, of any of the following transactions or pending or incomplete transactions since July 1, 2016, which the school district SAU or any retirement savings pension or similar plan was or is a party to? Sale, purchase, exchange, or leasing of property? No.
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 Receiving or furnishing of goods, services, or facilities? No.
Yes.
Yes?
I
You
did.
weren't on the
Oh.
board at the time,
Right.
I was on the board in March.
but not for 2016. Oh, that's right.
It's the year 2016, isn't it?
You're right.
Yep.
I'm wrong.
And John does, but it was also brought to our attention as far as doing the services. Transfer receipt of income or assets? No.
I mean, my wife is paid by the district. Does that count?
Yeah.
That's receipt of income.
I think it's you personally.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Maintenance of bank balances as compensating balances for the benefit of another? No. Other transactions? No. Does the board formally authorize all disbursements, both vendor and payroll, prior to the release of funds? Yes? No.
Oh, that's
Yes, we
right.
signed.
Yes, you
Yeah, we
sign,
signed
yes.
the manifest. Yeah.
That's after they're already dispersed, though.
No, I think we did
Actually,
before.
I don't think they can pay those invoices until we sign those.
Which is sometimes why we have to like.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Have a meeting just for the manifest.
Yeah.
They'll come in, yeah.
Does the board review comparative reports of estimated actual revenues and appropriations and expenditures? Yes?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes,
Sorry.
sorry.
That's all right.
What? No,
Trying to keep you with me.
Hard.
Can't you hear the bolt?
What procedures does the board follow in reviewing and using these reports? For example, does the board normally meet with the department heads as part of this process? Also, does the board review both the revenue and expenditure reports?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And also,
We
what,
meet with, principals.
yeah, so we also, on a monthly basis, sit down with the VA and go and review it. Has the board approved a disaster recovery plan in the event of loss of interruption of the IT function? Yes. If yes,
I
provide a
don't
copy.
know if we have one of those. I don't think
We
we
don't?
do.
No, I don't think so.
I thought we did.
No,
Not for
I
IT,
think
I don't
we've,
think. Yeah.
I think we've talked about that many times, but I don't think we've had too many other irons in the fire to.
So can we ask Jason if he has one?
I already have.
And does he?
I think there is one.
He doesn't-
That's where I got the answer.
So he's gonna work on one?
Well, we have backups, but
I mean, we've worked on redundancy. Now, do we have a disaster recovery plan per se? No. Have we worked on having redundancy and backup in terms of offshore? Yes, but you better have Jason address that in more detail.
Okay, I think I put down yes on it, because I thought we had
I
one.
don't think we actually have a policy, and I think that's what that's asking.
No, I would agree with that.
But it doesn't ask a policy, it says a plan.
I would agree, we do not have a written
It's
plan.
basically writing down what's probably in his head. He probably knows what he would
Like
do.
if he gets hit with a truck, we're not recovering anything.
I have all.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a written investment policy adopted? Yes.
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 Have you adopted the use of either debit or credit cards by employees? Yes.
Yes.
Does the board have knowledge of any funds or bank accounts that are not custody of the treasurer?
Yes.
I put no.
It's all the student accounts.
Oh, student accounts.
But those,
Those are in the custody of the treasurer.
Oh, are they?
They're
Yeah.
under the tax ID of the school district.
Okay. Are there any other ones?
Well, what, because we argue about this all the time. You know, Corey,
well, Corey's gonna be working on this.
you know,
He's
we
already
argue
got
about this all the time, and we don't have any control over it. I mean, literally, we have no control as a school board, and we're told by every BA till today
Who's the
that
treasurer?
they had no control over
And
it.
badly.
Oh, okay.
In order to open an account under the school district's tax ID number, you have to have the authorization of the school district treasurer.
So, but all those accounts have been opened under our account, our ID?
I would assume that they are.
That is a
They have in every
very
district.
reluctant, that's a very wrong thing to do on these
I have
accounts.
been. You know, I've been here 3 weeks.
This is one of the directions
I've made
that
it through.
Corey's
I've
already
made
going
it through
in.
the general fund, through trust funds. I'm
Yeah.
working my way towards student activities. So we'll
I
get
think
there.
you'll find in
But
that one that we don't really.
I think if we were to send a bank confirmation, which the auditors do, they send a bank confirmation to Citizens Bank, and it shoots back all the accounts that are under our tax ID number.
And
So
our
if those are on-
our auditors have chastised us.
Not in the last report.
Well, I didn't see the last report. But for 6 years running,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the last report.
we're not, well, they may have just given up, but, but we've not been in compliance.
That might
In
be
that
con-
sense,
that
with
might
the-
be
with the
control
auditors.
issues. That might be control issues.
Well, the auditors have said
Yep.
that we weren't in control of those accounts. And they sort of turned a blind eye along with us on it, so.
Corey's audited us a few times too.
Well, then you would have been the one that told us about it, that we weren't in compliance.
I didn't do student activities. I was lead. But I mean, I'm going to take a look into student activities. I want to get
Okay.
the controls. I want to figure out what's going on. I mean, you have areas that are decentralized cash collection being student activities, food service, gate receipts. You have monies. We need to know what the controls are about the receipts and how they're being spent. So that's part of I'm heading in that direction, I can assure you that.
Can you keep an eye on those $100 car registration fees?
I told him.
We had that discussion.
Has the board approved the fund balance policy in compliance with the GASB number 54? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Just nudging, right?
Well, you answered so
He's
well.
talking
So-
to you.
So, you answered so firmly, like it was, yes, we have, so.
Oh, okay. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
You need these back, Michelle?
Nope. Keep it unless you signed
Right.
it or something like that, but you don't have to sign it for chair.
So we already talked about North Beach. I just lost my place.
Graduation report.
Graduation report.
The,
Keep going up and down.
we looked at the graduation report for this past year, and we had a total of 83% of our students attending college for two-year college, 4% went military, career education was 5%, workforce 7%, and gap year 1%, total of 92 students. So we want to take a look at the trend. We did not have a chance to really go back and do a three-year trend line on the number of students that are going on to 2- and 4-year colleges. 83% is good, and we certainly want to make sure that the trend line is where it should be, but that's the overall report. And then on the back of this, you have the variety of different colleges and universities that the class, is this got accepted at or are attending? I did not
I
do
would
the,
say attending from the students I know, this looks like it.
attending.
Yeah.
It looks like attending too,
Yes.
because I saw a lot of other colleges that they had acceptances at that aren't here. So when you look at, our kids are going to a wide variety of colleges, 4-year and 2 years, some local, some distant, and, Penn State, Temple, UNH, whole wide range of different colleges. So, I mean, we certainly have a lot of kids doing that. We have kids going to the military, workforce, career education, et cetera. So, I mean, I think we were well represented. I just want to focus a little bit more on percentage of kids going on to college, and then how many kids we're getting into prestigious colleges. That's really what I want to take a little bit harder look at as we look at these numbers. So I don't know if you have any other questions. That was my quick look at this, though.
Can we, have Jody give us like a comparison to other schools, maybe similar schools to us, like,
We can get that. I
What those
can.
numbers are like.
We can. We'll see if we can I don't think they're necessarily a public document, but they probably are. Let's see what we can do.
what they are.
Yeah,
I'm just
that'll
curious,
do.
like, where we fall.
I know the head of guidance in Bow, and she would probably send this to me because it doesn't have student names on it. I'd
No.
be interested, us compared to Bow personally, because I think we're a
pretty,
lot alike.
pretty similar.
Yeah.
Also, I think that they've supplied a report like that every year for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we can
Guidance
do.
has, but I'm just curious, like, where
Let's
we
see
are.
what we can do. I just haven't seen one. I haven't seen one, so let's take a look.
Yeah, we've done that every year.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering, like, we see the numbers and we see, like, graduation rate and, 100%, and people go off to college at like 80%. So I'm just curious, like, where,
Well, if you've had it in the past, we certainly can produce it again, there's no question about that. I think we should look at demographically similar districts, so Bow certainly would be one, but I mean, when you're looking at a district that is considered to be the 8th wealthiest district in the state with regards to household income, and if we want to be the best in the state, I think we've got to look at the top 10 or 12 districts in the state and say, how do we compare to them?
Bedford.
I would say Bedford and Amherst, Bow,
Wyndham.
Wyndham, really, outstanding school, just not necessarily contiguous with us or right next to us, but, the best in the state, let's compare ourselves to them. So we'll try to put something together for you for sure, either August or September.
that'll bring us to the 2017-2018 handbooks for each school, which we need to approve the changes, and we'll start with GMS.
The handbooks, you have the full handbook, and then each principal did slightly different. In GMS, I believe there is red lines or red, and then I believe that's what it is. The blue is just actually references, but I think the red changes, there's very minimal changes in the handbooks that I noticed, so I don't think there's anything here that I would look at and say, really look at this piece, but if you've had a chance to review them, minimal.
My hat's off to CHS.
CHS.
We have been
Finally.
trying to get to this point on their handbook and dress code for 8 years. And we have finally have, I believe, a dress code that is fair and equitable across the high school.
Very good.
Good.
I mean,
I gotta go find it.
I don't know why it took so long, but that was the one thing I went looking for in all 3 schools. Now, I chuckled at the one at LMS as I was reading through it again today. That one was, they're still a little bit in the dark ages there. I mean, it's,
Maybe we'll get the trickle down
it's LMS is very geared towards the young girls, but CHS is finally, it's like they're coming out of the dark ages as far as what young people want to wear in the high school. So.
Was this student-driven or administration-driven?
I believe there are
heard it was
students,
both.
if I'm not mistaken, there are students involved in a committee as far as dress code. Is that incorrect? No, I'll ask. What's that?
I'm not marrying my son.
We'll leave it at that.
And I honestly don't know. I can get the answer for you and get it to you. I really don't know at
As
this
a former
point.
dress code Nazi, that's what they called me. I was,
Knowing,
I was, and I relaxed my stance a lot, but it needs to be clearly defined, no gray area, strictly enforced, like they do it at LMS.
okay.
It's
I
so
know
funny
you
when they
I'm
come
gonna
out of
keep
LMS,
quiet.
when they come out of winter time,
Yeah.
and they go into like the April and May when the first warm days start. Oh my gosh! I heard it for 3 weeks. Red
All
just
schools are
being
like
mean
this,
to the
though.
girls.
We're no
I've,
different than any other school.
Adolescents and high schools are interesting places.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. Our high school principal, by the way, was just appointed to the New Hampshire Secondary School Principals Association. I believe it's the executive board.
Wow.
So quite an honor for Bill, really pleased for Bill. I believe that's what he told me today. I hope I'm not stealing his thunder, but I believe it was New Hampshire Secondary School Principal Association Executive Board.
Now he's probably gonna want more money.
He already said that he thought that the remuneration he was getting was pecuniary, what's that word mean, cheap?
Tell him we'll reimburse him half price on his gas.
We'll give him a big attaboy.
No, he's done a nice job, obviously, the past year, and we're very pleased with Bill's work, and
Yep.
if I know him, there was a student voice in generating this dress code, because that's the way he works, And yet, when it comes to making decisions, he makes decisions. And I think we've got a very, very strong principal, and I'm pleased that the state recognized that also.
Well, so why don't we start with GMS?
I'll make a motion to accept GMS handbook.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstain. Second is LMS.
Same motion.
Second.
They're fighting for
She
it.
gets it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstain. And last is CHS.
Motion to accept.
Second. Did I win?
I think so. We'll give one LMS and one CHS. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. All three. That will bring us to, I believe, our second read, yep, of ECAB Building and Grounds Access and Security.
I mean, you've had a chance to look at it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's, I believe the bold, unless other authorized personnel are in the building, is the only change in the policy.
I'll still say the same thing I say every time. I think it's dumb that teachers from GMS can't get into CHS. Like, I don't know how many times, like, on perk and stuff like that, we're sitting there, and the GMS teachers aren't there because they can't get in the buildings, the doors are locked, and they don't have access. It's like, why can't the staff go back and forth? I don't get it.
Well, the kids are also locked out as soon as they leave the building in the afternoon. They can't come back in. They walk out that door at 2:23, they can't get back in to get their flute or their book or.
So is it reason why, like, people on committees can't get, like, dual access?
I don't know.
I would think, I don't know for sure, I'll have to check. I
You'd
don't,
have to contact the security company.
it's all fob access, yes?
Was to understand that the doors would not get locked until 3:30,
They get locked.
because, kids have to come in, or teachers go between buildings. We're gonna have to
We'll
look into that.
We'll look at
yeah.
that.
No, I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, I would think if we fob things, we could fob a particular time frame for a teacher to have access to a building, and then that person
Oh, yeah.
could come in that time frame, and it wouldn't be any issue. I mean, we'll have to look into that, and see what we can do. We certainly want to have accessibility to teachers to be able to go to meetings that they've been volunteering for. That's
I'm
It's a
certain that
faux pas.
you can set it that way. If you can set someone up to have all three schools, you should be able to set someone up to have two schools, and I think there's time parameters that are in there also.
absolutely.
I think it's,
I'm sure
I think
they
it's
are.
a security company that has to set it up, so we have to contact them, have them set up. So, I mean, if we could get a list and know who the certain individuals are,
Yeah.
maybe we're contacting them once or twice and not every other day when somebody's locked in.
So there's two things, the access and then the building staying open for access in the
We
afternoon
have two
till
late
3:30.
buses running to two schools. So students are there. I mean, if they're going outside and then all of a sudden they can't get back inside for whatever the reason may be.
LMS isn't locked, just can't.
Well, I know, yeah.
LMS.
I didn't think LMS was locked. Well, yeah, it is during school hours, but other than
Right,
that,
Campbell should not be locked till 3:30.
I don't, yeah, it used to be this high school was never locked.
Right.
I mean, it was, it really, it was
Now the
locked.
staff can't get in.
When they opened it, they locked it, 6 or 7 o'clock they may have locked it, but it was accessible. I mean, it used to have sporting events and people could come in and use the facilities and stuff, and now you can't get through the front door. I mean, at times, school board couldn't get in. We were like, yeah.
We do that purposefully. I think that the high school is, Michelle and I both agree, the high school is supposed to be unlocked till 3:30, so we're gonna have to look into that and get back to you folks with an answer on that one. The fobs, I would ask Corey to look into that and see what the procedures would be to allow for us to give people who are on committees access to other buildings.
So,
Unfortunately, John, I remember when high schools weren't locked, period,
Yeah.
till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. We're just in a different age today,
Oh, I understand.
different
I
age,
understand.
You know who would know about the doors is Deb Harris out front, because once they got locked out, they start buzzing the buzzer, and poor Sherry was just banged,
Right.
So Deb would probably know what time it locks.
Well, we'll check that, for sure.
Make a motion to approve.
A second reading?
Yes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
The food service meal charging is just to align us with federal and state mandate laws, RSA right now, so, I mean, that's the same thing you read previously. I don't think it's complicated.
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second?
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
The use of school facilities, we've had some discussion about this. I'm not sure where the board is right now. Hopefully, the board is comfortable enough to go forward with this, but there has been discussion about this, so I'll just leave my input at that. I would ask that you approve it, but certainly there have been some questions about it.
I'll make a motion to accept policy KG as written.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstained.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the manifest? We have signatures on all? All right. That'll bring us to public input again. Hearing none, I want to thank everyone for attending and go into non-public session, RSA 91-A:311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employees or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, one, has a right to a meeting, two, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted, B, the hiring of any person as a public employee, C, matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body of the agent itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. We are now in non-public.